Okay, I've told my story before on this channel. Maybe you've heard it, maybe you haven't. It's been quite a while since I told sort of how I got to where I am. I talk a lot about retiring early and investing in real estate, and those are the things that I've done. I only talk about the things that I've done on this channel. And, my story is I started investing in real estate. I went broke in 2008. I had to start over. And then I retired early and I moved to a Caribbean island. Sort of the dream everyone thinks you're going to do when you're going to retire early. But I haven't talked a lot about how all those things happen. I mean, how do you go broke? How do you lose over $1 million in real estate? And then how do you start over from that? And then how do you keep building from there? So I've sort of told the story of how it happened, but today I'm going to go back and go into a little bit more detail. I just got back from vacation. I haven't done a video for a while, so I'm still alive. Thank you very much. If you're still around watching, let me know and just put "I'm still here" down in the comments so I know that people are still out there watching. I know that I lose momentum every time I take a big break like this, but I just got busy with summer and rental properties, and then I went on vacation anyway. I'm back. That's why my office is a disaster. I've got some antique fishing poles back here that I'm going to be putting up maybe for some new decorations. I got work around my house here I got to take care of, but there's no perfect time. I figure I need to sit down and just get this video done. So I'm going to tell you guys today a little bit more about the background of like how I went broke. And while I was on vacation, I was in Montana. I went around and I shot video of each one of the properties that I got foreclosed on me. So we'll go into that. It should be a fun one for you guys today. Why do I want to tell the story about me? One of the things that I like to watch, I have lots of YouTubers that I watch and that I followed. You kind of feel like you get to know them. And when you know a little bit more about their personal story, I always enjoy that. So I guess it's my turn to get in the sharing circle and share a little bit more about my story with you guys. The good, the bad, and the ugly about, buying real estate and going broke. I always say, people say the first million is the hardest to make. I would say the first million is the hardest to lose. That was a rough one for me. We're going to talk about it today. And we'll delve deep into my past. So let's get into it right now.
Shut up and sit down.
If you don't know who I am, my name is Jeff. This is the Retirement Mentality channel. This is a place where we're going to change your mentality about retirement. Like I said before, we talk a lot about retiring early. We talk about investing in real estate. And I just try to come up with some ideas and concepts that I don't see everybody else talking about on the YouTubes about these concepts. And I try to bring a little bit different angle on some of these topics. So if those things are interesting to you, you're in the right place. Welcome to the channel. So in going into today's story about me, I didn't really know how far back to go to get this story going. So I thought, I'm an entrepreneurial type of a person. So I'm one of those people that it always has a new idea and always has a new idea for a business or an invention. And just, I'm not a 9-to-5 go sit in an office kind of a person. So that's just sort of who I am. So I thought I'd go back to my first real business that I started. I had lots of other little businesses along the way, but I started a mortgage company back in 1998. I was in my late 20s at the time. And I basically, back then there was no licensing requirements and things like that. I rented an office about the same size as my office in my house here, but in a commercial building. It was like 100 square feet, 150 maybe. And I bought a desk at a used furniture store, and I bought a computer, and I charged it all on my American Express card at the time, and I was in business. I had been working in the mortgage business for about 2 years. I opened up an office for another company, and we sort of had a disagreement. And so I went out on my own and started my own business. And that was very exciting, but businesses don't make money when you start a new business and you're a new person. Nobody knows who you are. So I would get up and I'd go to work at 8 o'clock every day, maybe 9. And then I would work until 5 o'clock every day. I guess I should be honest, maybe 4. We'll keep it all real here on the channel. But then at 4 o'clock, I'd go home, change my clothes, probably grab a bite to eat or something. And then I went to the Jackpot Casino, which I've got a picture of here. I just walked in front of when I was in Montana. And I'd work at the Jackpot Casino from like 6 o'clock at night until 2 o'clock in the morning. And I was the only one working in there. I was the bartender. I was the gambling assistant. I made change. I was the cook. There was a little restaurant in there. I was the short order cook. I was the psychologist listening to all the gamblers' problems. A lot of times I was even the child care assistant because they would bring their kid in, put them at the bar with me while they would go sit at the poker machines. So I did it all in there. So then I'd get off work at 2 o'clock in the morning. I'd go home, I'd go to bed, and then I'd get up in the morning and I'd go to my mortgage company, and then I'd do it all over again every day until the mortgage company started to make money. That's what being a business owner looks like. So eventually the mortgage company did actually start to make money. I didn't have to work at the Jackpot Casino anymore. And then I just saved all the money that I could in order to start investing in real estate. And so I bought my first piece of property, which was a duplex, and I lived in the upstairs and I rented out the basement apartment downstairs. You know what? Instead of me telling you about it, let's go to Montana. Let's use the magic of editing and take you to Montana, and I'll show you all the properties that I bought and owned in Montana, which eventually were foreclosed on me in 2008 when the market crashed. So let's go take a look at what my houses look like. This was the very first house I bought here in Bozeman, Montana. I think I paid $180,000 for this, and I think I sold it 2 years later for $280,000. And I remember that I got a check for $101,000 at closing, and I just thought I was like the smartest person on the planet. I lived in it for 1 year, and then I moved out of this and I rented. It's a duplex. So the top floor I lived in, and then there's a basement apartment down below that I rented out. And when I bought my second house, I kept this house and I rented out both the top and the bottom, and I was losing $100 a month. But I called it my piggy bank, because I knew that prices were going up so fast that $100 a month that I was losing would be no big deal. And like I said, when I sold it, I made $100,000 profit. And I'll show you what I bought next when I rented this house. I'll show you the second house that I bought. So what does Zillow say that the house is worth now?
809. 809,000.
$809,000, and I think I paid $180,000 for it. I wonder if I could go back in the tax records and look up exactly what I paid for it. We should add up what Zillow says all my houses were worth as we drive around and do this tour. When I sold the house in town, the little duplex, I used the proceeds to buy this house. And this was going to be a flip house that I bought. We're up in Bridger Canyon. Look how beautiful these views are. And all these trees were way smaller. Everything looks way different up here. And so this was the house really that made me go broke. I was going to flip it, and I didn't finish the remodel until like 2 days after the whole market crashed in 2008. And so the bank took this house and the other house that we're going to show you here in a second. We'll go on the Zillow here in a second and we'll see what Zillow says this baby's worth now. Okay, now we are in Big Sky, and this is the office I used to own right over there. And I ran it as a mortgage company, and then I turned it into sort of a gift / wine / smoke shop. It was called the Smoke and Wino. Actually, I just talked to the dude working in the store next door, and he remembers the Smoke and Wino. And I used to work at the raft company next door to my house in the canyon. But anyway, so this is my office building that I own. I bought it for $110,000. And I think I put it was a commercial loan, so I think I had to put $30,000 down. So I think I owed around $70,000 or $80,000 on this when it got foreclosed on me back in the day as well. After talking to him, he wasn't sure, but he thinks these units are all condominiumized businesses, but he thinks they're probably worth about $500,000 now. Okay, this was my main house, my favorite house that I lived in Montana. Look at this view behind me. This road did not used to be so busy and so noisy, but we've got Storm Castle Rock right here. This thing is so beautiful. You got Garnet Mountain right over here. Right back there is the Gallatin River. And so this is my house in the Gallatin Canyon that I owned, another one that I got foreclosed on. We'll talk about numbers later when I get back to my office because I'm going off the cuff here, but I think I paid $240,000 for this house and was underwater in 2008 when the market crashed. And this was another one that the bank took from me, but this is just literally the most beautiful place. Like, this is the raft company that I live next to. So I used to get to go whitewater rafting for free a lot because they were there. This is my house, and then right at the base of this mountain, which is like maybe 100 yards back there, is the Gallatin River, and I could walk back there and fish. And I'd take my four-wheeler out of the garage, zip down here 1 mile, go over a bridge, go back here, and go back up in these mountains. You could drive for days and days back there and just almost never find the end of the road. So that's the best house that I ever lived in. I just love this canyon. And that's the last one that the bank took from me. I hope that was a fun journey for you to see all the houses that I had and lost in Montana. I didn't really know how I was going to feel about going on that trip and seeing all those houses. It's the first time that I've been back since 2008. I've never returned to the scene of the crime back there and seen, all my old houses and a lot of my old friends. I had a great trip out there. And I didn't feel sad. I didn't feel regretful. I didn't feel any of those things that I wasn't sure how I was going to feel after I went back there and looked at those houses. I'm in a good spot now. I have a great wife. I have a great life, and I have no regrets. Do I wish that I would have lost all that money? No. If I wouldn't have lost all those properties and I could have somehow struggled through that, I think I would probably be 2 to 3 times better off than I am now, because I would have had, if we add up what all those houses were worth, it's a couple million dollars. And I would have hopefully been able to keep on that trajectory. So if I had a couple $1 million of property then, plus the ones I have now, I figure I would have probably been at least doubly as wealthy as I am today. But that's not the case. And, I have no regrets, and I learned some great lessons. And so the question is, how does that happen? How did I lose those properties? What was the mistakes that I made, and what did I learn from that? And how did I go forward? And how did I rebuild a multi-million-dollar real estate portfolio that I own today? Really, there were 2 mistakes that I made. And so the first one is, these were back in the days when there was 100% financing. They had what they called the ninja loans: no income, no asset, no job, no income, no job, no asset verification loans. So you didn't have to say how much money you make. You didn't have to say whether you had a job. You didn't have to say whether you had any money in the bank, and you could get a loan. And I was basically the bank. I was the one giving out the loans. And so I was like, the duplex I bought with none of my own money, my very first house, just had to pay the closing costs, maybe $4 or $5 grand. And I was a property owner, and I was a landlord. That easy. And so, like I said in the video there, when I moved out, I was losing $100 a month on that. When I rented the top and the bottom, the rental prices hadn't caught up to where the housing prices are, a lot like the situation we're in today, I believe, in the rental market. And I was losing $100 a month, but I just considered that my piggy bank, because prices were rising so fast that I thought, who cares? I said, eventually I'll sell this one day and it'll all be worth it. And I was right on that one house. But then when I bought the next house with no money down, I didn't put a lot of remodel or anything into that duplex. It just stayed how it was forever. But then when I bought my house in the canyon, I did do quite a bit of remodeling on that house, and I did 100% financing, but then I did put, I don't know how much exactly I put into that house. Since I was living in it at the time, I just would spend 10 grand and put new floors in, and I spent 5 grand and remodeled the basement and did some things like that. So I didn't put a ton of money into that house, maybe $30,000-$40,000 of my own money. And I did refinance that house at least one time as the value went up, and I took some more equity out of that house. But then my house in the canyon, in the Bridger Canyon, the red house that I showed you, I did a 100% loan on that as an investment property. I did an 80% first mortgage and a 20% second mortgage. But I put about $150,000 of my own money into that house, which was every penny that I had saved up. So I invested all my money. I was going all in on that house. And my office in my office in Big Sky that I had, where I put my second branch of the mortgage company. I also remodeled that. I don't remember what I put in there. I added a bathroom so it could be ADA compliant, and I put new flooring in, and I got custom made furniture in there so that I could look fancy, because Big Sky is a very fancy place. Even back then it was kind of fancy. So I did have, even though I was doing 100% loans, I did have a lot of my own money invested into these. So when I lost them, I really had nothing left, because all my savings was tied up in my real estate. Kind of a lot like today, but not exactly like today, because the second mistake that I made when I went broke was that I didn't have reserve accounts. I didn't have emergency funds. I didn't have any way to weather the storm. So when the mortgage company stopped making money and I was not being able to pay my mortgages on my house plus the flip house, because the flip house wasn't selling, and I still had the office in Big Sky, and it wasn't really making that much money. Even after we turned it into a store, it did okay, but it wasn't making enough money to pay the mortgages on my other 2 properties. And I'm trying to refinance one house to pay the other house, because there was no money, and I didn't have stocks or bonds or 401ks or retirement accounts. I didn't have any of that, because I was just investing into the real estate. And so when the house of cards started to crumble, there was nothing there to keep it going. And that was the second big mistake, was not having any kind of reserve accounts or emergency funds to keep, at least to cover mortgage payments for 6 months to a year, to where I could have figured out how to start earning an income again. And so just the money ran out and the bank came and took them all. And eventually the sheriff came, knocked on my door. I opened the door. There's a sheriff standing there and he's like, "Hey man, time to go. It's your last day. You got to pack it up." And so I had tried to do some garage sailing and sell what I could. And whatever was left, I put it in my Dodge truck with my dog, Wyatt. And we hit the road and we decided we were going to the beach and we were trading the mountains for the beach. And that was it. That was the last time I ever saw Montana until this trip that we just went on. So that is how you lose. I believe at the time it was about $1.2 million worth of real estate. And I'll put in here too, I've said this in some other videos, but you have to be careful what your goals are. Because my goal at that time was to have $1 million worth of real estate or stuff or assets by the time I hit 30. And I think I was 32 or so when I realized I was pulling a credit report or something, and I saw that I was $1.2 million in debt. And I was like, "Oh, I did it. I made it. I've got my $1 million worth of stuff." But the problem of acquiring $1.2 million of stuff is that when it became worth $800,000 and I couldn't make the payments on it, I couldn't afford to keep it. So wishing to be a millionaire or have $1 million in real estate or all these round numbers people like to do, turns out that my goal was wrong. I shouldn't have made my mission to get $1 million in debt. My goal should have been to have some sort of a positive net worth, because even though I owned all those things, I really didn't have a positive net worth when the real estate prices came down. So you got to be careful what you wish for. That's another lesson I want to put in here. So I'll skip over the next couple of years. I kind of waffled around for a little while. I got a sales job. I moved to Charleston, South Carolina. I met a girl, and we ultimately ended up moving here to Florida. And so how do you start over from that? Well, like I say, I waffled around for a while, and then she and I decided Charleston was a very expensive place, and I decided I need to live somewhere with a lower cost of living. Just to make a long story, this is getting a little bit long, so I want to try to make this a little bit shorter for you guys. But we decided we need to live in a lower cost of living area, so we sort of went to Pensacola and we worked our way down the Florida coast because I wanted to be at the beach. And we got to Panama City Beach, and it was the nicest beaches of all the places that we thought that we had seen. I don't want to get a lot of hate from Pensacola people or Gulf Shores or Gulf Breeze or wherever. But it was the first place that we really liked. We liked the beaches. We liked you could get houses very close to the beach for a very low price. So the first house we bought here in Panama City Beach, we paid $100,000 for. And then we just unknowingly, we started buying one house every year. It wasn't really the plan that we had. At first, I thought we were just going to buy this little tiny, it was like an 800 square foot house that we paid $100,000 for. And my idea was that we could take both of our salaries and pay that house off in 6 years if we paid X amount of dollars, and we get it paid off pretty quick. My girlfriend at the time, we weren't married. She had $30,000 saved up. I obviously had zero. I had zero credit. I had like a minus 400 credit score because of all those foreclosures. She was not a U.S. citizen. She was here on a visa as a school teacher. I think she had her green card at that time. I'm not sure. But she couldn't qualify for a loan. I couldn't qualify for a loan. And we ended up buying a house from a house flipper who did it on a contract for deed for us, and which gave us 2 years to refinance it, to get it out of his name and get it into a conventional loan. So the point I want to make here is, I said, I was like, how do you lose $1 million of real estate? How do you start over? That's kind of how I started over. I took her 30 grand. We took her 30 grand and we bought a little house. And then we built from there slowly and surely. And the lessons that I learned were the mistakes that I made, was that I had no equity and I had no reserve funds. So the second time around, we took her 30,000 and we bought a $100,000 house, and we put 20,000 down and we had 10,000 left over. So we had a little bit of buffer there. And then because our house was so small and our mortgage was so low and cost of living was low here in Panama City Beach, then we were able to actually live on her teacher's salary. Her salary from being a school teacher paid the mortgage and paid our bills and bought our groceries. And the money that I made through sales, we put into the bank and then we were like, well, let's buy another house. This went pretty well. So the next year, I got my credit cleaned up, and I don't think we were married yet when we bought the second house, but we bought a duplex right down the road from our first house, and we paid $125,000 for it. And the rent on each side of it was $750. So the rent from one side of the duplex almost paid the mortgage of the duplex. I think it was like $850. And the rent from the other side of the duplex paid the mortgage on the house we were living in. So with our first investment property, we basically were living without a mortgage because the duplex paid both mortgages. And so that made us be able to save money a little bit faster. So now I was saving, by not having a mortgage to pay, I was saving an extra $750 a month. And so within a year, we saved up enough money to buy another investment property. And that is how we came back from the total devastation of my foreclosure situation, going broke. And then we just bought one house every year until we had enough money that we didn't have to work anymore. And then I basically retired, and we moved to the Virgin Islands, and my wife was not ready to retire. She got a job. She decided she wanted to go on a new adventure. And so I said, it's your turn to pick something crazy, because I've been doing all the crazy stuff. She put out resumes, and the Virgin Islands was the first place that offered her a job. And we basically moved there sight unseen and spent 3 years in the Virgin Islands. So that is sort of the story of how I started investing in real estate, went broke, started over, and then now we own 6 properties, and we can live off of the rent of our properties. She's working part-time now, just teaching online, and I've sort of scaled down selling real estate. And so that's where we are now. That's how we did it. I planned on going around and showing you the properties that we own here. If you're interested to see the real estate portfolio that I have now, leave me a comment down below and I'll take you around and give you a tour on what we have here in Panama City Beach. We can talk about the numbers if you want. Let me know what you want to see. If you liked this video, if you liked hearing my story, I don't know how this video will go. We'll see if anybody watches it. But give me a thumbs up if you did. And if you want to see more about advice on buying real estate and retiring early and sort of the mindset around those things, then maybe stick around and consider subscribing to the channel. And if you like this video, I've got another one that I think you'll like. Go check out this video over here, and we will see you in the next one.